Often, creating an animation where an object follows a very defined path can be a little bit of a challenge, but here in Modo, creating a path constraint will alleviate some of those problems. Let's take a look at how we can do this. I have my little arrow here. I've deactivated my circles, and I want my arrow to travel along a very defined path. Now, this path is going to be accessed by a number of different other items inside of my scene, so I can't rely exclusively on keyframe data that resides on the actual arrow itself, because we can do that. We can keyframe the movement and then create a motion path and edit that motion path pretty easy using our animation tools. But we want to be able to access this path and expose that path to other items inside of my scene. So that traditional keyframing method is really not going to give us the result that we're after. So we're going to create a custom path and then constrain our arrow to travel along that path, kind of like a train on some railroad tracks. Let's just go ahead and do it real fast. I'm going to create a new item. Remember, all constraints happens at the item level, so it's critical that we separate our items from each other. Let's just call this path. There we go. And I'm going to just go grab my my path tools real fast. Open up the modeling toolbar here, and you can find all of your curve tools inside of. They're kind of buried and nested inside the pen tool. And I'm just going to use a traditional curve here, and let's just kind of very quickly draw out a really fun path. I love working with the curve tool. It's always going to create lovely sweeping arcs for me. It's a way to very quickly get some compelling movement. And let's make this a little bit more three-dimensional. The placement of these control vertices is always going to follow the orientation of the work plane, by the way. So if you're trying to create something, if you're trying to edit this, just make sure you understand the role of the work plane and you can have some fun. There we go. That's pretty good. I'm generally pleased with that. That's good enough for me. Okay, let's drop it. There's my curve. Okay, and now the mission here is to constrain that arrow to travel along that path, like a little railroad track, and it's really easy to do that. Once again, you have to make sure that the selection order is noted. Again, I'm going to select the arrow first, hold down the Shift key, click on my mesh item that has the path, and now I'll go back over to my channel modifiers, or my constraint modifiers, excuse me, and let's fire off the path constraint, and mission accomplished. There it is. Now, check it out. My little arrow here has been glued to that path, which is very, very cool. But we have some editing in here that we need to do to get the arrow's result the way we want it to show up in the final animation. Right now, I want the tip of the arrow to be following the tip, to be following the path itself, and we're not quite getting that. So once again, if we go back over, select our path constraint, you can see that we have an axis here. Let's put that to X. There it is. Aha, awesome. Now, in order for us to get our little arrow to move along this path, we're going to have to animate the path percentage. At the value of 0, you can see where the arrow is, but as I increase that value, check it out, look at that. You can also, that's so awesome, just kind of send that little arrow along that path, which is pretty neat. Now, you also have some other values in here that you'll want to make sure you take a look at. Wrap is kind of fun, which is basically going to restart our guy. Yep, there it is. So once it gets to the end here, notice the path percentage value. Once it gets to about 200, it's going to start over again. So it's a great easy way to make loopable animations, which is pretty neat, that little wrap value. You can also offset your path a little bit. So you can change the starting location. So if I just put that at 0, I can have the offset values here change what we define as 0%. And in certain use cases, that's a nice thing to have. And then we also have a roll degree, which is going to allow us to go in and do some banking type movements in here, which is pretty neat. I like that as well. That's kind of fun. So that is the path constraint. You're going to be using this a lot. It's a fantastic addition to our modeling tool set, or excuse me, our rigging tool set. And one final thing before we end this little video here, if we go into the actual curve itself, open up the curve tool once more. There we go. Oops, excuse me, I didn't mean to actually activate the curve tool. Let's go into vertex mode, and I want to grab the control vertices that are controlling this path. Check it out. This is still a live path, so we can go in, grab the control vertices that are influencing this roller coaster, and continue to edit our animation after the constraint has been made. It's an incredibly powerful tool, and one that I know you're going to use going forward for a lot of your rigs. I love working with path constraints. Most of the camera movements that I could create these days are generated from a path constraint. Any item can be constrained to a path, and we can generate the movement of that item based on the path's construction inside of our scene.